In a quiet suburb of Seattle, Washington, lived a young nurse named Lisa Thompson. She was 28 years old, worked at a local hospital, and was known for her kindness and professionalism. Her colleagues valued her for her hard work and attentive care of patients. Lisa grew up in a middle-class family. Her parents were teachers. She had always dreamed of a better life, but never imagined her dreams could turn into a nightmare. Raymond Jenkins, a 58-year-old businessman, was the successful owner of a chain of hotels on the west coast of the United States. He had a reputation as a tough but effective leader. Raymond was divorced and had 2 adult children from his previous marriage. His fortune was estimated at several $1 million, which made him an attractive bachelor. Despite his age, Lily and Raymond met at the hospital where Lily worked. Raymond was admitted there with a heart attack, and Lisa was his attending nurse. During his hospital stay, they struck up a conversation that developed into a relationship after Raymond's discharge. Despite the significant age difference, Lisa was charmed by Raymond's confidence and charisma, as well as the prospect of financial stability he could offer her. To outsiders, their relationship seemed strange. Lisa's friends and colleagues expressed concern, but she brushed off their remarks, assuring them she had found true love. Raymond, for his part, seemed genuinely in love with the young nurse, showering her with gifts and attention. No one could have predicted that this relationship would lead to a tragedy that would shock not only Seattle, but the entire country. The story of Lisa and Raymond would become an example of how dreams of a better life can turn into a nightmare, and how the desire for freedom can push a person to commit a terrible crime. After being discharged from the hospital, Raymond began actively courting Lisa. He invited her to expensive restaurants, gave her jewelry, and took her on romantic weekend getaways. Lisa was overwhelmed by the attention and luxury she had never known before. She felt like a fairy tale heroine, with a handsome prince rescuing Cinderella from boring everyday life. The relationship developed rapidly. Just 3 months after they met, Raymond proposed to Lisa during a dinner on the roof of one of his hotels overlooking nighttime Seattle. The 3-carat diamond ring cost more than Lisa earned in a year. Without hesitation, she said yes. Wedding preparations took only 2 months. Raymond insisted on a lavish celebration at his country estate. He personally controlled every detail, from the menu to the guest list. Lisa felt a bit lost in the whirlwind of preparations, but attributed it to excitement about the big day. The wedding took place on June 15, 2019. More than 300 guests attended the ceremony, mostly Raymond's business partners and acquaintances. Lisa's family and friends were in minority. The bride looked stunning in a dress by a famous designer, but a careful observer might have noticed a shadow of concern in her eyes. During the wedding banquet, Lisa felt the first signs that her life would change, not only for the better. Raymond constantly controlled her interactions with guests, interrupted conversations, and insisted that she always be by his side. When Lisa tried to spend some time with her friends, Raymond abruptly called her away, citing the need to introduce her to important business partners. After the wedding, the newlyweds went on a 2-week trip to the Maldives. At first glance, it was a perfect honeymoon, pristine white beaches, a luxurious hotel, romantic candlelit dinners. However, it was here that Lisa first encountered Raymond's dark side. He insisted on a strict daily schedule, controlled her diet, and even chose what she should wear. When Lisa expressed the desire to walk on the beach alone, Raymond threw a jealous fit, accusing her of ingratitude, returning to Seattle. Lisa found that her life had completely changed. Raymond insisted that she leave her job at the hospital, arguing that she no longer needed to worry about finances. He also suggested moving into his mansion, located in a prestigious area of the city. Lisa agreed, hoping that these were temporary difficulties and they would be able to find a compromise. However, with each passing day, it became more evident that Raymond had no intention of changing his behavior. He controlled every aspect of Lisa's life, from her wardrobe to her social circle. Lisa's old friends gradually stopped visiting, and new acquaintances were exclusively from Raymond's circle. Thus began a new stage in Lisa's life in a gilded cage, where her every move was controlled by a domineering husband. She did not yet know that this was only the beginning of her trials, and that events awaited her that would forever change her fate with each passing day. Lisa's life became more restricted. Raymond gradually increased his control over every aspect of her existence. He installed surveillance cameras throughout the house, explaining it as a concern for security. However, Lisa quickly realized that the main purpose of this equipment was to monitor her. Raymond insisted that Lisa change her phone number and delete all her social media accounts. He argued that this was necessary to protect their privacy from prying eyes. When Lily tried to object, Raymond threw a tantrum, accusing her of ingratitude and hinting that she might be hiding something. Financial dependence became another tool of control. Raymond gave Lisa a limited amount of money for pocket expenses, demanding an account of every penny spent. All major purchases were made only with his approval and in his presence. Lily's social circle narrowed to a minimum. Raymond did not approve of her old friends, considering them unworthy company. He organized meetings only with people he chose himself, mainly his business partners and their wives. At these events, Lisa felt more like a decorative element than a full participant in the conversations. Even the choice of clothes became a subject of constant arguments. Raymond insisted that Lisa wear only the things he approved. He believed that his wife should look a certain way. Corresponding to his status, any attempts by Lisa to express individuality and style were harshly suppressed. Gradually, Lisa began to lose touch with reality outside their home. Raymond limited her communication with her parents, arguing that she now had a new family. Phone conversations with her mother became rare and always took place under her husband's vigilant supervision. Lily's attempts to find work or engage in volunteering met with fierce resistance. Raymond believed that his wife should not work, as it could negatively affect his reputation. He insisted that her only duty was to be the perfect companion to a successful businessman. Physical violence was not part of their relationship, but the emotional pressure became stronger. Raymond masterfully manipulated Lisa's feelings, alternating periods of demonstrative tenderness with coldness and alienation. This kept her in constant tension, making her doubt her own feelings and decisions. By the end of their first year of marriage, Lisa had almost completely lost her identity. She had become a shadow of her former self, constantly trying to please her husband and avoid his displeasure. Dreams of a happy family life were shattered by the harsh reality of marriage to a controlling partner. One day, looking at her reflection in the mirror, Lisa barely recognized herself. She realized she could no longer live like this. This realization became the first step towards forming a plan that would ultimately lead to tragic consequences. The realization of the hopelessness of her situation didn't come to Lisa immediately. At first, she tried to find a compromise. Attempted to talk to Raymond about her feelings, but each such attempt ended in another scandal, after which the control only intensified. Raymond skillfully used guilt, making Lisa think that all the problems in their relationship were her fault. Lisa began to look for ways to break out of this vicious cycle. She secretly gathered information about women's crisis centers, tried to contact old friends. However, her fear of Raymond was too strong. She knew he had connections in the police and local authorities. Lisa was afraid that if she tried to leave, Raymond would find her and bring her back, and the punishment would be severe. The thought of murder first came to Lisa after a particularly heavy conflict. Raymond caught her on a phone call with her mother, which she was having without his permission. A terrible scandal followed, during which Raymond threatened to completely isolate Lisa from the outside world. At that moment, she first thought that the only way to gain freedom was to get rid of her husband forever. At first, Lisa drove away these thoughts, considering them the product of momentary weakness. But the more she thought about it, the more attractive this idea seemed to her. She began to plan the murder, realizing that it was her only chance for a normal life. Lisa carefully thought through every detail of the plan. She understood that she would have only one attempt, and a mistake could cost her freedom or even her life. She decided to use her medical knowledge. The plan was to gradually poison Raymond, mimicking the natural deterioration of his health. The choice fell on a powerful medication that Raymond was taking after his heart attack. Lisa knew that an overdose of this drug could cause cardiac arrest. She began to gradually increase the dose, mixing additional pills into her husband's food and drinks. At the same time, Lisa diligently created the image of a caring wife. She demonstrated to those around her concern for her husband's health, insisted on regular visits to the doctor. This was supposed to divert suspicion from her in case of Raymond's death. The poisoning process took several months. Lisa carefully monitored Raymond's health. Making sure that the deterioration was not too sudden and did not arouse suspicion, She used her medical knowledge to mask the symptoms of poisoning as signs of progressive heart failure. With each passing day, Lisa felt her tension growing. She understood that she was committing a terrible crime, but the fear of returning to her previous life was stronger than moral torments. She convinced herself that she had no other choice, that this was the only way to save herself. The final stage of the plan was put into action on a cold November evening. Lisa mixed a lethal dose of the drug into Raymond's evening tea. She sat next to him, feigning care and attention, while the poison slowly did its work. When Raymond began to choke, Lisa called an ambulance, knowing that help would not arrive in time. Raymond Jenkins died in the hospital that same night. The official cause of death was acute heart failure. Lisa, dressed in black, saw up at his bedside, playing the role of the inconsolable widow. Inside, however, she felt a strange mixture of relief and horror at the realization of what she had done. After Raymond's death, Lisa entered a new phase of her plan. She carefully prepared for the investigation that would inevitably follow. First, she destroyed all evidence related to the poisoning, empty medication packages, notes with dose calculations. All this was burned in the mansion's fireplace on the night after the funeral. Lisa continued to play the role of the grief-stricken widow. She organized a lavish funeral, attended by all of Raymond's business partners and acquaintances. During the ceremony, she did not leave the coffin, demonstrating to everyone her sorrow and devotion to her late husband. This demonstrative grief was supposed to divert any suspicion from her. Over the next few weeks, Lisa methodically built an alibi. She met with Raymond's friends, telling them about the last days of his life, how he had complained about increasing heart pain. She visited his doctor, expressing concern that she had not insisted on a more thorough examination. All these actions were aimed at creating the image of a caring wife who had done everything possible to save her husband. At the same time, Lisa began the process of inheriting the estate. She hired an experienced lawyer who took care of all the necessary paperwork. It turned out that Raymond's fortune was even larger than Lisa had assumed. In addition to the hotel chain, he had significant investments in real estate and securities. However, Lisa soon faced an unexpected obstacle. Raymond's children from his first marriage contested the will, claiming that their father could not have been of sound mind to leave his entire fortune to a young wife he had lived with for less than 2 years. A lengthy court process began, which attracted the attention of local media. The increased public interest in the inheritance case forced the police to more closely examine the circumstances of Raymond Jenkins' death. Detective Michael Rodriguez, a veteran of the homicide department, noticed some inconsistencies in witness testimonies and medical reports. Rodriguez began an unofficial investigation. He interviewed the hospital staff where Raymond died, studied his medical record. The detective paid special attention to Raymond's medical history in the months before his death. He noticed that the symptoms described in the medical records did not quite correspond to the typical course of heart failure. Lisa, immersed in the legal battle over the inheritance, did not immediately notice the increased police interest in her husband's death. She was confident that her plan was perfect and had left no evidence. However, paranoia and fear of exposure began to grow. Every phone call, every unexpected visit caused her a panic attack. The situation escalated when Detective Rodriguez unexpectedly appeared at Lisa's house under the pretext of additional witness questioning. His questions were sharp and precise, concerning the smallest details of Raymond's last days. Lisa felt that the detective suspected something, but tried to remain calm and stick to her pre-prepared version of events. After Rodriguez left, Lisa fell into a panic. She realized that the ring around her was tightening. In desperation, she began to plan an escape. Lisa gathered all available cash, prepared fake documents. She decided that as soon as she gained access to Raymond's bank accounts, she would immediately leave the country. However, fate had other plans. On the evening before the planned escape, the police knocked on the mansion's door. They had a warrant for the arrest of Lily Jenkins on charges of first-degree murder. Detective Rodriguez had found irrefutable evidence of poisoning in Raymond's blood that had not been detected in the initial investigation. Lily was arrested right in the bedroom, where she was frantically packing suitcases. The dream of freedom and wealth crumbled to dust. Now she had to face the harsh reality of justice and answer for her crime. The arrest of Lily Jenkins became a sensation in Seattle. Local media instantly picked up the story of a young nurse who poisoned her wealthy husband. Newspaper headlines screamed about the Black Widow of Seattle and the deadly marriage. The public was shocked by the details of the case, which gradually became public knowledge. Detective Rodriguez held a press conference where he talked about the course of the investigation. He explained that the key to solving the crime was the results of a repeated toxicological examination. Traces of the drug were found in Raymond's blood in concentrations significantly exceeding the therapeutic dose. This discrepancy became the starting point for a deeper investigation. Further study of medical records and interviews with hospital staff revealed strange patterns in the deterioration of Raymond's health. Several nurses remembered that Lisa often insisted on giving her husband medication herself, explaining that only she knew the exact dosage. A search of the Jenkins house brought even more evidence. In a hiding place discovered in Lisa's bedroom, the police found notes with calculations of drug doses and a schedule of its administration. Traces of burned documents were also found in the fireplace, indicating an attempt to destroy evidence. Interviews with Raymond's acquaintances and employees revealed the true nature of their marriage. Many noted Lisa's strange behavior, her depression and fear of her husband. This information helped the investigation establish the motive for the crime, Lisa's desire to free herself from a controlling spouse and gain access to his fortune. Lisa was placed in the county jail awaiting trial. She was charged with first-degree murder, which in Washington state carries a punishment of up to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Lily's lawyer, renowned criminal defense attorney Jonathan Green, stated his intention to build a defense based on the battered woman syndrome. He argued that Lisa acted in a state of extreme necessity, saving her life from a cruel and controlling husband. The prosecution, in turn, insisted that the murder was a carefully planned act aimed at obtaining inheritance. They pointed to the duration of the poisoning and Lily's attempts to hide evidence as proof of the premeditation of her actions. The Lily Jenkins case caused wide public resonance. It raised questions about the nature of domestic violence, about the difficulties faced by victims in trying to escape toxic relationships. Many women's organizations came out in support of Lisa organizing rallies of the courthouse. At the same time, Raymond's family and friends were outraged by attempts to portray him as a cruel tyrant. They insisted that Raymond was a loving husband and Lisa was a calculating killer driven by greed. While Lisa awaited trial in a prison cell, her life changed dramatically. From a luxurious mansion, she found herself in a world of prison rules and restrictions. Now she herself was in a situation where her every step was controlled, but no longer by her husband, but by the justice system. Lily spent her days preparing for the upcoming trial with her lawyer. She had to decide whether to plead guilty in exchange for a less severe sentence or risk going to a full trial, hoping for acquittal. Meanwhile, Raymond's children withdrew their lawsuit contesting the will. Now that Lisa was accused of murdering their father, they were sure she would not gain access to the inheritance. All of Raymond's assets were frozen pending the outcome of the trial. As Seattle prepared for one of the most high-profile trials in its history, Lily Jenkins was left to wait and reflect on how her dream of a better life had turned into a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. The trial of Lily Jenkins began 6 months after her arrest. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, representatives of public organizations, and just curious citizens, everyone wanted to see the denouement of this drama with their own eyes. Prosecutor Angelica White opened the proceedings with a harsh indictment. She painted a picture of a cold-blooded murder committed out of greed and desire for an easy life. Thompson presented to the jury a detailed poisoning plan developed by Lily and described how she manipulated those around her. Creating the image of a caring wife, the defense, led by Jonathan Green, presented Lily as a victim of circumstances. Green told of years of psychological terror that Lily endured in her marriage to Raymond. He brought forward testimonies from friends and neighbors who had noticed Raymond's strange behavior and Lily's depressed state. A key moment in the trial was Lily's own testimony. She described in detail the control she was subjected to, the fear and desperation that drove her to crime. Her account was emotional and seemed to make an impression on the jury. However, the prosecution attacked Lisa harshly during cross-examination. They pointed out inconsistencies in her testimony, the thoroughness with which she planned the murder and her attempts to hide evidence. The argument that Lisa, being a nurse, had every opportunity to seek help but instead chose the path of crime resonated particularly strongly. After 3 weeks of hearings, the case was handed over to the jury. Their deliberation lasted almost 2 days, indicating the complexity of reaching a decision. The jury's verdict was a compromise. Lively was found guilty of second-degree murder. This meant that the jury believed in the presence of mitigating circumstances, but did not consider them sufficient for a full acquittal. Judge Marcus Gray sentenced Lily to 25 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. In delivering the sentence, the judge noted that this case demonstrates the complexity of the domestic violence problem and the need for more effective mechanisms to protect victims. The court's decision caused a mixed reaction in society. Lily's supporters considered the sentence too harsh, arguing that the system had once again failed a victim of abuse. Others believed she got off too lightly for premeditated murder. Lisa herself accepted the sentence without visible emotion. Leaving the courtroom, she looked drained, but at the same time seemed to feel relief that the years of uncertainty had finally ended. In her final statement, Lisa expressed deep remorse for her actions. She asked forgiveness from Raymond's family and said she fully realized the gravity of her crime. Lily also expressed hope that her story would serve as a warning to other women trapped in situations of domestic violence and encourage them to seek help before it's too late. The Lily Jenkins case became a turning point in the discussion of domestic violence in Washington state. It led to a revision of legislation and strengthening of support measures for victims of abusive relationships. Funding for crisis centers was increased and psychological assistance programs were expanded. The story of Lisa and Raymond became the subject of numerous studies, books, and documentaries. It continues to provoke debates and discussions about the boundaries of self-defense, the nature of crime and punishment, the complexity of human relationships, and the fine line between victim and perpetrator. For many, this case became a reminder of how easily a dream of a better life can turn into a nightmare if one chooses the wrong path to achieve it. It also highlighted the importance of timely seeking help and support in difficult life situations. Ultimately, the tragedy of Lisa and Raymond Jenkins remained a sad example of how toxic relationships and the inability to find a legal way out of them can lead to irreversible consequences, destroying the lives of all involved.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like this video for more true crime video. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Take care and see you in the next video.